Is the Nintendo Switch 2 gonna end up just like the Wii U? Let's talk about it. In my last two videos, I talked about why Nintendo Switch 2 games might be really expensive, and also some ways you can get around expensive games and increase in prices of games here on out. Today I want to make a video about how Nintendo communicates with its customer base, and also how game companies can make a mistake in totally tanking their consoles if they don't communicate well what they're trying to convey. We can see examples of this. I'll give you one: the Wii U. A lot of people just thought that it was a Nintendo Wii with a new controller, and because of that, if they already had a Wii, they weren't going to buy the Wii U. And in actuality, the Wii U was a more powerful, more capable system with new features. Same thing with the Virtual Boy. What people expected and what was conveyed and communicated in advertisement did not align. Another example, let's switch over from Nintendo over to Sega. The 32X. There was miscommunication between Sega of America and Sega of Japan. They wanted to roll out the Sega Saturn, and 32X was more of an American thing, and Sega Japan wasn't happy about that rollout because there were two 32-bit systems, and they thought there would be confusion amongst the customer base and Sega fans, and in actuality it did cause some problems. These decisions caused the 32X to have a short lifespan and a short library. And basically what I'm getting at is game companies, if they miscommunicate their new hardware or their new game systems and what they're intended to be, this can actually cause the console to fail miserably. Now let's talk a little bit about the Switch 2. From what I understand, they're communicating that the Switch 2 is a more difficult to use Switch that doesn't allow you to own your games, that have digital only downloads with limited storage capacity. Also, it does Switch 1 through emulation. So it's not even FPGA or hardware based support or compatibility for the backwards compatible Nintendo Switch games. So let's talk about that for a little bit. When we went from PlayStation 1 over to PlayStation 2, the fat PS2, I believe, you can correct me in the comment section, had the hardware from the PlayStation 1 to play the PlayStation 1 games. It was only until the PlayStation 2 Slim that they went with the emulation option. Same thing with the PS3. You had that first PS3, which is notably unreliable, okay? But to me, it was one of the best PS3s if you can get one working. It had the actual hardware of the PS2 inside of it. So not only could it play PS1 through emulation, it could play PS2 and PS3 games. Later on, they went with emulation when they went with the PS3 Slim. And what I would like to say is emulation is okay as long as the quality and the full compatibility is there. Unfortunately, with the Switch 2, they're already having issues out the box. Games are not even compatible with the emulation software, and they have to install updates before they can even use their Switch 2. So what Nintendo is communicating is this is just a more expensive Switch that's more difficult to use, that you can't own your original games, that uses emulation to play the old games, which is not even fully compatible or ready right now to play the full Switch 1 library of games. And I don't think Nintendo understands that they are communicating this with their customer base. If I have a Switch that works, why would I buy a Switch 2 that's even more difficult to use, that doesn't allow me to own my games? And the rollout library of the launch titles of the Switch 2 is weak, in my opinion. And I'm just gonna put it out there. Mario Kart, you know, Donkey Kong Country, how many years have we had a new Donkey Kong Country game? You can't tell me that you're actually excited about this. Now, the overall consensus of this video, as I want to say, is the game companies have to work on how they communicate their hardware to its fan base. So if there's miscommunication, or if you're selling a product of what it not really is, that's going to turn off your customer base. It's going to have a backlash. And this isn't the first time Nintendo has done this. For example, I brought up the Virtual Boy, and I also brought up the Wii U. So Nintendo has made mistakes in the past on how they communicate with especially their US base of fans in Nintendo. In my opinion, I feel as if the Nintendo Switch is just going to go the route of the Wii U. I may be wrong, but it sounded like it's going down that same road. There's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what the Switch 2 is. Me personally, I hate the nomenclature. I hate when they went off and started saying like Xbox One, Xbox Series X, etc. I used to like how they used to name consoles like Sega Genesis. It let you know kind of like what the console was all about. You had the Master System, you had the Sega Saturn, the Dreamcast. These were cool names. Now they just go Switch 1, Switch 2. Even back in the day, they had Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP. They had, what was the other one? Game Boy Micro. So it gave you an idea of kind of what that console was supposed to be. But I believe how they name the consoles is getting weaker because they're trying to go with the streamlined theme, sort of like Apple thing. And in my opinion, I think they should bring naming back. Why didn't they just name it the Switch Advance? You know, to nod their old hardware. There's a lot of ways they could have brought their fan base back. And instead of punishing people, like I heard that there were skins that you would have to pay for, or filters you would have to pay for, now that were free once on the Switch 1. And in my opinion, I think these are practices, business practices that actually hurt Nintendo as a company. So this video was about game companies need to communicate clearly to their customer base on what they're purchasing. And right now, what they're communicating with us is you're just buying a Nintendo Switch 1 that's more difficult to use, that's more expensive, and that won't even play your old library of games efficiently. So Nintendo needs to work on that, and we'll see where things go with the Switch 2. I think once the Switch 1 goes on discount, I will finally get a Switch. But I was kind of disappointed to hear that the Xbox portable console was going away. So I was actually looking forward to that one. But let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think Nintendo is communicating well with their customer base and letting them know what the Switch 2 is? Because in my opinion, I just feel like it's not worth the money right now. So take care. If you like this video, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. Support links are in the description below. And I'll see you on the next video. Peace.